So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks a million for being here. I present for Ruth Sancho, who apologizes deeply that she can't be here, and Jennifer Lade, our talk, Design and Play to support hospitalized children. If you might remember the talk from yesterday, you know that we in the Conversion Games Lab try to invent the future of play based on the view that we want to go from playing with the digital to playing with the digital using our bodies to experiencing our bodies as play. Because you had so much fun with that yesterday, I would kindly like to ask you once again to stand up for me, to actually experience something. Let's start. I'm not going to ask you to spin around. Aww. I'll ask you to please close your eyes. Close your eyes, keep standing, keep closing your eyes. Because I want you to now imagine that you would like to experience your body as play right now. And what you could do within this given context and environment we are in. So for example, you might say, I would love to run around, but you can't because there's a table in front of you and a chair behind you. You might go, I would love to do an arm wrestling with the person next to me, but that might not be socially acceptable within this context. You might now say, maybe there's an environment that I could use to facilitate play. So what you do now is open your eyes, keep standing up, open your eyes and just have a look. Quietly, give you 15 seconds and think about ways how you could appropriate this environment here for play. Look around, see if you can appropriate anything here for play. All right? So I'm not sure about you, but if I look around here in this windowless room with a rather uninspiring floor pattern and furniture and technology that is designed for everything but play, it is really, really hard to experience a life full of play. And that's exactly the case for children in hospital 24/7. Some of them for months, some of them even for years. And that's what I'm talking about. You can sit down now, thank you. But play is super important, and not despite these children being in hospital, but because they are in hospital. Because we know from X-Line, who did the work in the 40s, that play is super important, because play is the child's natural medium of self-expression. It is an opportunity which is given to the child to play out his or her feelings and problems. Just as in certain types of allotherapy, an individual talks out his or her difficulties. And hospitals have now, quite some time later, recognized this and established these so-called play therapy rooms. And they're full of toys and crafting material. But not every hospital has them. Therefore, there's other initiatives, such as the clown doctors you might have heard of. They use play therapy to help children in hospital. And it's shown that they actually not only facilitate the mental well-being of the children, but can also increase the time of recovery for the children. And then more recently, when it comes to the digital, there's these non-profit organizations that collect old game consoles and games and bring them into hospital. And now research projects have drawn onto that. There's Bright Hearts, which use a clip in the ear to measure children's heart rate and allows them then with an iPad to calm themselves down before treatments. There's a few products out there, like Gluco Boy, coming out of Australia. There's an attachment to the Game Boy that supports play by and helping children to measure their glucose levels. But when it comes to actually hospital, children in hospital, there's even fewer projects. One of the more popular ones is Virtual Dream, which basically uses a virtual reality to allow children to be transported into a different environment for a short amount of time. And these approaches are very good, but we think they can be complemented by rather, let's say, it sounds really harsh, but taking them out of their hospital environment kind of takes them out of their life. Being in hospital is their life. They are 24/7. It affects them. It affects their school performance. It affects their interaction with their family, their siblings, their friends. So we were thinking whether we can really bring an additional perspective to that and help the children engage with the hospital environment in a way that facilitates play there, rather than just distracting them for a few minutes with a virtual environment. And that fits within that vision that I earlier outlined. So if you look at our three-step vision, you can see that probably the examples that are concerned with the distraction sit kind of like on the left-hand side of that vision, but what we rather want to see is an engagement with the hospital experience, because we believe that that has the chance to actually facilitate an experience of their bodies as play. So in other words, what we're trying to do is we want to try to help children in hospital to experience their hospital environment as a playground. That is a bit different than pervasive games like Pokemon Go would do, because they would allow you to see the hospital environment as a playground. We want them to allow them to experience it as a playground. The difference between going from seeing to experiencing it. So this is what we did. We did co-designing with children. We talked to hospital staff. We talked to play therapists. Engaged in tinkering. Tinkering is part of our process. And then we decided on this workshop format. We did multiple of these workshops. This is an invite. We did one in Spain. The workshops are always over 2 days. Each one lasted 2+ hours. There are usually about 10 kids in there, but we also invite the parents and their siblings, because that's part of their social life. And then the first thing that we asked them to do was a rather analog task, which is crafting. We invited them to actually craft together, something that they hardly ever do in the hospital. They were free to do that any way they wanted to. They could shift around. But we asked them to do these things. These are animals cut out of their personal X-ray sheets. And they created these wonderful shadow puppets. Once they had these shadow puppets, they could play Dr. Giggles, which is a game that we developed that kind of reversed the role of the child and the doctor. Because the child was all of a sudden the doctor, and the patient in the game is that small character there, which has the picture of the doctor that usually treats them. Because we took a photo of him or her beforehand, put it into the game, and then the child had to move around the patient. And it was based on laughter therapy, because Ruth is actually a certified laughter therapist, so there's a lot of laughter going on in the game. And they drag around the patient and had to get get him or her to operate the various equipment pieces in that virtual operating theater. And one of these equipment pieces is the X-ray machine. So if they dragged it over the X-ray machine, the X-ray play character that they developed earlier appears in the game, because we kind of secretly scanned it in during the workshop. That, of course, facilitated more laughter. The other game they could play was X-Safari, which is a virtual world that contained, that was traversed by a horse. And in order to control the horse, we asked them to first of all develop these glove puppets. So for that, they could use the operating gloves, they could use bandages, cotton buds, anything to create these amazing hand gloves. And then once they had created them, they could put them over this augmented glove. And I know there's other gloves before, but we really tried to create one that is super cheap, so every hospital can afford it. And with that, they then could use their hand to actually move the virtual horse around. Like I said, we did several of these workshops. What did we learn? Well, we had questionnaires. We interviewed the children as well as the parents and the staff. And we kind of derived 4 lenses through which you can see the design of games in hospital. And each one of these lenses has a strategy assigned to that. And I'm going to present you the lenses here now, and these are reframing, ownership, privilege, and body as a resource. Let's start with number 1, reframing. So reframing refers to it's a common technique. Let's say you are afraid of needles, then what you do in reframing, you actually allow you to touch a needle, allow you to examine it further. You can play with the needle, take it apart. And here we use reframing to actually introduce hospital material as a resource for play. These are these gloves, the X-ray sheets, and so forth. But what we could have done better, which is actually feedback directly from the children, was we could have or should have also looked at the hospital process as a resource for play. Because what we had was, sometimes the children had to go and undergo treatment, so they had to leave the room briefly. And one of them had to get the X-rays done. So the children left behind, they actually said, you're getting X-rays, get the X-ray sheet because it allows me to create a new giraffe. Number 2 is ownership. And ownership refers to supporting autotopography. Autotopography is our humans' desire to decorate our physical environment with physical objects in order to make it ours. It's like the reason why we print out digital pictures and put them up on our fridge. But children in hospital don't really have that opportunity to make it theirs. So they really enjoyed the fact that they could keep those gloves afterwards and decorate their IV drip with that, or their wheelchairs. And some of them gave it to their siblings to decorate their home, their room at home, to connect their hospital life with their home life more. Number 3 is privilege. Privilege here refers to the fact that all of a sudden the child in the hospital was the privileged one, because he or she knew about the materials, she knew what they were called, what they were usually used for, how to unwrap them, and could tell that to his or her sibling, who is usually the privileged one. Right? And that, we saw a talk earlier about asymmetrical play, really underlines that by saying there's actually a benefit sometimes to support asymmetrical play, because we can put the child that is usually the underprivileged one into a more privileged position. So we really want to highlight that as an opportunity for designers. Number 4 is the body as a resource. And of course, like a child's body in a hospital is rather weakened, but there's still opportunities for embodied play. Here's a picture of one of the siblings that took one of these gloves at home and played with that, because they were all characters, right? So they're either animals or they were hospital staff, and they all supported enabling embodied play by putting the hand in the glove, for example. And if you do that, you allow them to express themselves using their bodies. And that was particularly emphasized or applauded by the parents, because they said it was fantastic that my child actually moved around, and they did that by, they were supported by the fact that they took pictures of them. And they said, I usually don't take pictures of my child anymore, because whenever I come to the hospital, I see rather this lifeless child of mine lying in bed. But here now I had actually my child running around and moving their hands, and that allowed me to take pictures, and I'm proud of sharing with my family at home. So it really shaped the perspective of the parents, but it also created some problems, because from at least one nurse we had the feedback that now that the children are much more agitated or moved around more, it was much harder for them to actually apply procedures such as the IV drip. And therefore they said, you created more work for us, because we rather want children that just sit down still, don't move, and be quiet. So here's a really interesting tension for us as game designers. So in sum, I presented 4 lenses: reframing, ownership, privilege, and the body as a resource. So if you're interested in designing play for hospitalized children, we want you to think about how you can support experiencing the body as play. And we think it might be useful to look at traditional activities such as crafting in order to allow people to see their world as a playground. So the higher level take-home message here is to encourage you to think about how you can design to help people experience the world as a playground. And that's the end of my talk. My name is Mueller from the Exertion Games Lab. Thank you very much.